Okay, streaming.
Okay.
Okay, waiting on YouTube. And we're live. Okay. Um, just a fun fact. I didn't know that, but you do know that I have my channel and I have some subscribers, like 240 actually subscribers.
hmm
And I didn't know that, but they got a notification every single time we get online with those classes. I didn't,
Oh no.
I didn't know that, but it's okay. It's okay. At least someone is learning something. I believe they got a little frustrated because they were looking for some exercises and tips and tricks on your
Gameplay.
leg. No, I'm talking about the broken bones on your
hmm
TBL and whatever. Anyway, they probably are getting frustrated. They probably are going like,
Oops.
"Oh, there he goes again. He's blah blah blahing about programming." Yeah. Okay, Red. Let's see. Where are we? Okay. Uh, last class, so we learned about the concept of stacks, and we even drew a little um, diagram that explained to you about how it works. The three variables you need, the three pieces of information you need to deal with stacks, which was uh, the zero, which is the first position,
Right.
the max, which is the maximum stack size you can have, and your current index, which tells you in which position you are, right?
Right.
Okay, another thing we got out of the way was we are not deleting anything from the vector. We are basically reusing the address. We are assigning a different value to that address, remember? And then
hmm
we are just moving the index down. So this way you were always getting the last the last piece of information you got inside of your index, inside of your vector. It's going to be the first piece of information. It's going to be removed when you're trying to delete it. Make sense?
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Okay, so and we did something awesome actually, which was we created our stack and we got rid of magic numbers. That's awesome, as you can see right here, right?
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
we got rid of the magic numbers, and then we started adding information to our stack. So we did once, then we printed the whole thing, then twice, and then printed again, and so on and on and on. Okay, that worked, but
Yep.
that's not how we do it. We don't do like that. We don't use. We used to call it as a monolithic program, or which means it's going to be huge. It's going to have lots and lots and lots of lines, and that's basically not how we do it. So
Okay.
today we are going to expand a little bit more about this program, but there are one thing I want to talk to you about it, and that thing is methods. Okay.
Okay.
So what are methods? Okay. Methods are this actually it's a method. This is our main method. Okay. Methods are pieces uh, of code that will be executed only when they are called from a different position. Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense?
hmm
Okay. So how do we work with methods? I'm gonna explain something briefly in here about methods because this is really important because in Java you basically use methods, but on different languages you're going to work with something called functions. So I want you to understand the difference between them.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're talking about methods, usually methods, they won't return anything. There will be no returning value to anything, okay? And
Okay.
methods, sorry, and functions return something.
Okay.
So let me show you how we used to do that on Object Pascal, for example. That would be procedure or method, okay? Blah, 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 and that's it. This is a procedure. There's no returning, it is not returning anything. And this is a function. Function, blah, 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 returning an integer, for example. What does that mean? It means that if you're just running the blah, blah, blah procedure, it is going to perform an action, do something with your code or with the information you passed as a parameter or argument. You are going to hear both terms, parameters or arguments inside of a
Okay.
method or function, but will not return anything. Will not return anything, okay? And if you're working with functions, that means, okay, do this piece of information and then return me something. Return this information to the one who called that method
Okay.
or function, okay? So in Java, how does that works? How can we wrap this on Java? We worked with that like this. We just tell, for example, this is going to be the modifier. Do you remember public and private?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is going to be a public method, all right?
Okay.
And if there's no return, if you're not expecting any information back from that method, you are going to use void.
Okay.
So let's say blah, blah, blah. There you go, blah, blah, blah. And this thing is the equivalent to this one because it's not returning any kind of information, all right?
Okay.
But what if I need to return some information? Let's say I wanted to return an integer, for example. So it's going to be the same way. So it's public. The type you want to return, so this is going to be an integer. And the name of your method, blah, blah, blah,
Okay.
2. And there you go. This is your method in Java. Your function
Okay.
in Java, okay? So this tells the compiler that this method is supposed to return some piece of information, something, all right?
Okay.
And methods, they are supposed to be inside of the class, not inside of other methods. So let's try to understand this. As I told you, this is a method, public static void main. This is a method, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Returning nothing, as you can see, all right?
Yeah.
We are going to discuss static later, but
Okay.
this basically tell us that it doesn't matter how many threads or how many instances we have running of this class, it's always be just one execution of that. Everything that's
Okay.
inside, it's just the same thing. It doesn't matter how many methods you have, how many times you're running it at the same time. It's always accessing the same address. Okay.
Okay.
So this is a method, and everything that go between the keys is part of that method,
Mm-hmm.
as you can see right here. Okay. So
Yep.
let's create a method, a simple method, for example, that will return us the value or the value of some math operation. For example, let's say a sum. All right. So
Okay.
let's create a method called public. And if I'm trying to return something, keep in mind that I'm returning some piece of information. The first question you need to ask yourself is, what is the type of the information I'm going to return? What is the type of information?
Int.
Integer. All right. And of course, we need a name for that method. So this is going to be, for example, sum. All right,
Okay.
and there you go. And as you can see, there's a little snake, a little curly thing uh, under the
Yeah.
int, and it's just complaining that you just told the compiler that you were supposed to return something in here, and you are not. So how do you return? Using return and the information you want to return. Got it?
Okay.
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 Uh, okay. Basically, this method we just created, the sum method we just created, is just returning 0. This is not very useful, right? Useful,
Right.
because it's always going to return the same thing. So we need to make a way to send information to that method and have it processing and returning us the value of that operation. For example, I want to make a sum from two different numbers, okay? So
Okay.
what I'm going to do is say, I'm going to create an argument or a parameter. For example, value A, and another one for value B. There you
Okay.
go. Now I have two different values, all right?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Integer value A and value B. Let me see, missing a parameter target is for value A. Oh, this is correct. I don't know what's complaining about it, but okay. Oh, there you go. There's some spacing here. It's not supposed to be. There you go. So let's say it's going to return the sum of value A and value B.
Okay.
There you go. Using a parameter tag. This is not correct. For some reason, this is something from the IDE, probably some update or something. Okay, so let's just call this method from inside of our main method. For example, sum 10 and 20. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Public int. Let me see. Non-static. Oh, all right. Since we are working inside of a static method in here, you cannot access anything that is not static also. So we need to make it static in here. Okay.
Okay.
That's why you couldn't access. We are going to work with that later when we are creating our classes. So don't worry about it right now. So okay, right now I'm asking it to make a sum. Let's put a breaking line in here. So Control M. Oopsie. Breaking point. Okay, and let's debug this thing. All right. So right now, if you take a look at up here, you're going to see that you can click F8 for step over, which means we'll not get into that method. And you can click Shift F8 or F7 to step into, which means okay, go inside that method. So F7, there you go. Now we are inside of that method, as you can see. And now we have the values in here, so value 10 and value 20. It's returning that value, and F7 again, and back to this. All right, it worked. It's not printing anything because we didn't ask it to print anything. We are not doing anything with that piece of information. So let's print that information. System.out.println. There you go. Okay, so how does this work, Red? How can we just use this method inside of a method? As you can see, println is a method. It's a method that returns a string every single time you're you're using println. You're accessing a method that will print that information into the console. All right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's what println is doing. So we
Okay.
are using another method inside of a method. So this means we are using the return value of this as argument or parameter to the println. Make sense?
Okay.
Got the idea?
Yeah.
Okay, let me simplify this for you just a little bit. So let's create a variable called sum value. There you go. And let's say
Mm-hmm.
that this variable is equals to the result or return of the method sum. All right.
Right.
And then we are printing the value of sum value. That's the same thing, exactly the same thing. But let me just
Okay.
put a breaking point in here and let's debug this. So, all right, pressing F7, so we got inside of our method, all right,
Mm-hmm.
and hovering inside of the values. There we go. And now we have a return value for that. And the return value for that is 30, as you can see.
Okay. Yeah.
So it took the first parameter and the second parameter and did some operation with that.
Right.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And after we did that, we assign that value into the variable in here.
Right.
Okay. And we are using that information inside of a different method called println to make it print into your console. That's what we are doing. All right.
Okay. Yep.
Let's create another method, but this one we are not going to return any value. So let's say
Okay.
public static print separator, for
Mm.
example, and we are not passing any kind of arguments or whatever. Oh, of course, need to be void, right?
Right.
And let's just say it just prints something. System.out.println. Whoa. System.out.println. And let's say it's going to print this.
Okay.
All right. So as you can
Yep.
see, I'm not returning anything in here, but I'm using the system method to print stuff straight to the console. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay. So
Right.
let's just call this method print separator. There you go. As it doesn't request any kind of separator, no, separator, right? There you go.
Yep.
Okay, so as I'm gonna use it twice in here,
Okay.
and let's just run this. And as you can see up here, there's our first separator, then the return of our method sum, and
Yep.
then it's printing another separator. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yep.
question: are all methods going to be as simple or simplified like that one? No. You are
Mm.
going to add all the requested function you needed inside of a method, but there's a rule in here. Okay, it's actually not a real rule, but it's something that will help you to maintain your code better, and that is always give just one purpose to a method, which means if there's something you need to do inside of the method that does to have the first method completing its task, you need to separate them.
Okay.
Let me give you another example. Let's create a method in here called public static void print age. Okay, and it's going to say something like int year. There you go. All right, this is
Okay.
extremely simplification where I'm trying to tell you, but this is something like this. Let's say that this method says system.out.println, and let's say your age is, and then you need to print the age in here. But as you can see, we are not getting the age in here. We are
Right.
receiving a number that we need to make some calculation. We need to make some math to discover the age, all right? So
Right.
how can we do that? Okay, as I told you, and this is an oversimplification of what I'm trying to tell you, is
Okay.
if this method states that you just need to print the age and you don't have the age in here, this means, okay, you need to create a method that will find out the age and return the age value so it can be printed.
Right.
Okay, so this way, system.out, this way, Red, your code is always going to be self-documented. That's the difference between self-documented and comments, remember?
Right.
So for example, let's say that public static void find age, all right? And it can't
Okay.
be void because we are going to return the age, so it's going to be
Right.
integer, all right?
Int.
So int year, there you go. It receives a year, and let's say that it returns. And right now I'm going to use some magic numbers because we are not going to use the date class to find out which year we are right now and return something, okay? So it's going to be
Okay.
a magic number. So it's going to be 2018 minus year. There you go.
Okay.
All right. So this
All
one,
right.
what does this one do? This one, it takes an argument in here and use this argument to return from a calculation in here, right?
Right.
And return the current age we have. So we are back to the print age, and right now we are going to do a concatenation in here and call that method. The method is find age, and we are passing the same argument we just received, which is year. So year, there you go. So right now, what are we doing? When we are calling print age, the only thing the print age is supposed to do is print a string with the age.
Right.
Since we are not receiving the age, we are receiving the year, we need another method to find out what is the age. So that's what we are doing in here. So it's much easier for us to understand this. It's much easier for us to have it self-documented because it's pretty clear what does this one does. This one finds the age. This one prints that age. All
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Let's
Yep.
let's have it in here. So let's say print age. And let's say that the person is born in 1976. There you go. This person is born at this age. And we need to
Okay.
print that information. So system.out.println, and there you go. Okay? You got it?
Yeah. But it's
System.out.println. Oh, it's okay. And it's complaining. Why is it complaining, Red? Because this one is not returning any information. You see?
right.
So
Right.
you don't need a system.out because we already have a system.out in here. So it was my mistake. So it's just
Okay.
we are just going to call print age, and the print age is 1976. There you go.
Okay.
When we call this method, it's going to use this other method, the println method, to print the information that is between the parentheses. It's going to print this string and concatenate this string to whatever comes from find age. And what comes
Okay.
from find age? It comes 2018 minus the argument you passed in here.
Okay.
Okay, so let's run this and let's see what happens in here. There you go. Your age is 42. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, let's try a different kind of return type for the method. Let's say that this one, on this one, we are trying to find out if the person is it's a minor, for example. So let's
Okay.
say public static boolean. All right. And when you're working with booleans, it's always a good practice to start your method with the word is, because it's going to be one of the two things, true or false. All right. So let's say it's minor. Is minor. Is the person minor, for example? And let's say we are receiving an age in here.
Okay.
All right. So let's say that if age is higher than 21, we are going to return false. Actually, let's do the best case scenario first, as I always told you to, right? So it's lower or lower than 21, which means 20, right? Let's return false. And then this is going to give you a little bit of a headache. We are going to return true down here.
Okay.
Okay. See anything weird about this? There's no else statement in here, as you can see.
Yeah.
So it seems to you that it will always return true, right?
Yeah, it seems, yeah.
Yeah, but keep in mind that once the method reaches the return keyword, it stops the method entirely and returns the value you're trying to return. So if age is lower than 21, it's going to stop the method right here and return false. If not, it just keeps going. So it will drop down here and return true. Okay.
Okay.
So as you can see, our method is minor. It's not trying to figure out how old the person is. It assumes that you already have that information. You see, I'm not trying to do two different things in this method. I'm trying to do just one.
Okay.
Same thing in here and same thing in here. All right.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, let's use this method. Let's say that if, for example, is minor, all right, and we need to pass a value. We can either pass a value like 20 and say system dot out dot println you're a minor. You're a minor. And else we can just say system.out.println oopsie print ln you're an adult. There you go. All right. So if we are passing this information, we are just checking if the person who has 20 years old is a minor. You're going to print you're a minor. Of course, we know that person is not a minor, right? Actually, it is a minor. Let's take a look in here and let's see if it worked. As you can see, the person is an adult.
You're an adult.
Okay, so what's the problem in here?
Age is connected to the 1976.
No, because we are not passing age. We are not passing 20. We are passing 20 in here.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay. Yeah.
So what's wrong? We need to debug to find that out, okay? So let me put a breakpoint in here and let's debug. And let's see, using, as I told you, F7, we are going to jump into that method. The method is minor, and we can check the values. So value is 20 in here. Is 20 higher than 21?
Yep. No.
No. So it's going to drop down here. And as you can see, we are returning false. But what is the question? Is minor? That's the question. So we just made a swap in here. It's just a simple mistake because on this method, on this call right here, we are supposed to return true because it is a minor.
Okay.
And if it's not a minor, it's going to return false. So if it is a minor, returns true. Oopsie. Returns true. If not, returns false. There you go. And let's
Okay.
try
Yep.
that again. And it worked.
Okay.
Okay, so let's make this a little bit harder. Let's say that, okay, but I don't know the age. I know the year of birth. So we can just call another method, the method find age we just created, and pass inside that method the year of his birthday. All right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So right now, what's going to happen? It's going to find the age first, returns the value of that age, take that value and pass it as an argument or a method or a parameter into this method called isMiner. So it's going to take that information, we know it's 42, and it's going to evaluate that information. Let's take a look at that. Okay, first things first, what does it need to do? It needs to do the find
the age
first. As you can see, Red, it's always going to process from right to left. Okay, it starts in here, then it drops to here.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
All right. So let's take a look and find age. So press F7. As you can see, we are on isMiner because we already run the find age. Let me run that again. There you go. F7 returns false. Oh, we're not. We don't have a breaking point in here, so we need to put a breaking point in here because this one just returns things. So let's go here. There you go. F7, as you can see. There you go. First things first, find the age, as you can see. All right. And after that, it drops back to isMiner and processes that information, returns false because it's not a minor, and then we are evaluating on the if. If is minor, no, it's not minor, so you're an adult. You got it?
Okay. Yep.
Makes sense?
Yep, that makes sense. I didn't know that before, that it went from right to left.
Yep. Okay. So this is pretty much how we work with methods. So what is the use for that? Of course, it keeps your code organized, okay? Because as you can see down here, we use the same method over and over and over and over and over again, okay?
Right.
We did it like 10 times adding, and we did like 5 times removing items from our stack. So let's try to create a method that will do that for us. Let's say that the first thing we are trying to do is adding a value to the stack, right?
Okay.
We're just trying to add a value to the stack. So let's create a method that does that. So public static. Do we return any kind of information in here? Can you see if we return any kind of information in here? We are returning if the stack is full, okay? So we can use something like a Boolean just to let the user know if the method was able to process or not. This is one way of doing it, or we can just do like we did right here, which is printing. So let's do the first one, which is just printing. So public static void add item to stack. All right.
Okay.
And let's receive a value in here saying, let's say it's an integer number. So integer value, there you go. And we can just copy and paste this. Let's say we can just use this thing in here. And let me just tell you beforehand that we are going to have a problem on the index value and stack size value, and that's because those values are declared inside of main. And remember when we talk about scope, so this means that this variable only exists inside main method. So we need to
Right.
move them up into the class, but it's okay. Let's just do this right here. There we go. Copy and paste. There you go. And here's the problem we knew we were about to have it, which is it doesn't know what index means. It doesn't know what stack size means. It doesn't know what is this vector in here. And the problem, as
Right.
I told you, is because we have declared those things down here inside of the method, right? So let's
Right.
just move them. Let me just cut this from here and move them all the way just beneath the lesson stack, the declaration of this class, okay? So right now, stack size, it has its value for the whole thing in here, all right? And there's, of
Okay.
course, another problem in here, and the problem is these variables in here are not static, and we are trying to access them from a static method. Okay, so for now, we're just going to say it's a final static, which means it doesn't change. It doesn't change this value. It values if you're running more than one instance. Don't worry about the static thing, okay? We're just doing that because we are trying to run it inside of a method, inside of the main method in here, all right?
Okay.
Don't,
Okay.
don't worry about it, okay? So let me just
Okay.
get rid of the print age stuff in here and the print separator because you got that idea already. And right now we don't need anymore any of those. Oh, okay, we have another method in here that just prints the stack, right? As you can
Right.
see it right here. So let's create a
Yep.
method. It's not a method in here, it's just another comment that tells the program to print the stack. So let's create another program in here, another method. So it's going to be a public static void. It's not returning anything, and let's say print the stack. All right, it doesn't take any
Okay.
kind of arguments, and what does it do? It just prints the whole thing as we used to do right here.
Okay.
Got it?
I think so.
Any questions so far? Okay, so now we have the add in here, and we have the print. This is an add. This is an add. Your stack's full, which means it's an add. And this is just printing. All right. And
Okay.
this is another adding. As you can see, it's the same method. It's adding stuff.
Yep.
This one is just printing the stack again. All right. And
Yep.
this one is adding. Every time you see your stack is full, it's just the same method we had before. This one is
Right.
printing the stack, so we don't need it. And this one is adding again. And this one is printing the stack. There we go. And this one is adding, saying your stack is full. All right. And this one is printing your stack. All right. Okay, and now we reach a different thing in here. We reach something that is removing items from your stack. So it's another piece of code. It's another part of comments, and we want to make that, turn those into a method again. Let's make it. Let's make another method. Public void, public static actually, static void remove. Let me see how we call it. Remove item from stack. All right, and it
Okay.
doesn't matter which item because we are just removing the last item we added. Okay,
Right.
so let's just copy this information down here and paste it in here. There you go.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And back down here. So this is just printing the whole thing, and you've reached the beginning of the stack. We know that is just for removing, and this is printing the stack again, and this is removing the stack and printing the stack and removing the stack and printing the stack again, and then printing 2 lines and then removing items again, as you can see, printing the stack, and then it's printing the size of your stack. There you go. We got rid of the whole thing, the whole code we had that were doing the same thing over and over and over again inside of the same method. We make them into a method for by themselves, as you can see. So every time
Okay.
we need to add something to our stack, all we need to do is add items to the stack, right? As you can see, we are receiving a value in here. So we can just say that we are not using random numbers anymore. We are actually inserting the value we just passed as a parameter in here, as you can see. Got it?
Okay. Okay.
All right. So we are just adding the value we just received. So how can we just add a item to stack? We just call the method add item to stack. And let's say I want you to add the number 10. There you
Okay.
go. And I want to print the whole thing again. Then print the stack and call the method. There you go. And run it. There you go. 10. And you got a separator in here because that's the value. We just did it, right?
Right.
Okay, let's try it again. So add item to stack. And let's say this time I want you to add 76, and then I want you to add 79. I want you to add 13, and then I want you to print the stack. Let's see what happens. There you go. 10,
Okay.
76, 79, 13. All right.
Okay.
And right here, what is it doing? It's printing the stack size to position 0. It doesn't matter. We don't want this. Actually, it's printing the position before the last one, as you can see. It's printing the very last item. It goes all the way to stack size and then returns 1. Because our vectors start at 0, so if your vector have 10 elements, the last index of that element is going to be 9. That's why we are using stack size -1. Okay, so this one is basically just printing the very last item. Okay, we don't want this, so let's get rid of this. And right in here we have control on which is our index position. And I don't like this. I don't like it. Let's create a method to do that. So let's say public static void print index position. There you go. It doesn't take any arguments, and then all we need to do is do a system.out.println and the value of index, because index is the value that's going up and down all the time. So let's say between the first adding items into your stack, we are just going to print index position. There you go. And let me see what I did wrong in here. Print index position. Okay, there was a mistype in here. And then I wanted to add something, and then print the index position, add something, print index position, and then print the whole thing.
Okay.
Easier to read?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As you can see,
yeah, that makes sense.
We are not printing the values on the position, for example. We are not printing
just the position.
You are just adding the position and printing the position, and we asked to print the whole thing later. So
Right. Okay.
let's think a little bit, and let's say, okay, what if I want to print the value of uh, a single position. I want a method that lets me to retrieve the value from a specific index position. Okay?
Say that again.
I want to create a method that will
Yeah.
retrieve the value of a specific index position.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So how can we do that? We're just going to public. And if we need to return information, it can't be void, right? It needs to
Right.
have a type. So it's going to be an integer, all right? And let's
Right.
say
Right.
retrieve index value. Retrieve index value, no. Retrieve value at index, better, right?
Okay.
Okay, and of course, if it is retrieving value at index, of course, we need to pass an index as an argument. So let's say int index or IDX.
Okay.
All right. So what I want to do, I want to print instead of retrieve. I wanted to. Okay, let's do a retrieve. So return index. Oopsie. Return what is the name of our value, stack. So stack is our vector, right? At the index position. There you go. So every single time I call this retrieve value at index position, yeah, we are passing this this argument in here, the integer edx, and we are returning the value that is stored inside of the vector into that specific position. All right. For
Okay.
example, let's say system.out.println. I wanted to print the retrieve value at index. And let's say it's going to be the index number 2. All right.
Okay.
So which means it's going to be 0, 1, 2. It needs to print 79. All right.
Okay. All right.
Let's see if it happens. There we go, 79.
Okay.
Okay, any questions about this?
Okay. The reason it printed the whole thing is because it says print the stack after that, right?
Down here, right? Because we have
Yeah.
a method that that iterates iterates around the vector and print the
Okay.
value of every single position using I as an index factor.
Okay.
Questions?
Okay.
Any questions?
Probably a ton of them, but not right now. I'm gonna have to absorb it.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to reread it all and look through it again and make it make sense.
Okay, so let's just
Whoops,
make
sorry.
a point in here. Let me just make a point in here. So why do we use methods? We use methods to make a better organization of our code. The code is now, it's not reusable as we use it to call it. But for example, Red, the other way we are doing the insert items into the vector, we had to do the instructions and then repeat the same instructions again and repeat the same instructions again, and there is a
Right.
huge chance of us making a mistake. There's
Right.
a good chance of us using the wrong number, the wrong magic number, or using the wrong operation. That's not good. So that's why if you need to the general consensus on this, the general line of thought is, if you need to access to do the same thing more than twice or more than 4 times, make it into a method.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't realize that you could do all of this in methods. I thought they were just, like this, or not even any of these.
Just for the big things, the special things, maybe like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
the line of thread read, the line
Mm-hmm.
of thought says, of course, there are programs out there that might disagree on that, and it's okay because, as I usually say, programming is just a way of express yourself. So you can do that this way or that way, but there's no denying that is way better to read uh, using this idea, using this, create a new method if you need to repeat the same operation more than 4 times. Okay,
Okay.
it's easier to read, but of course there are some conceptions or there are some concessions we can make.
Okay.
For example, uh, some guys say, what is the correct length of a method? What is the correct size of a method? How many lines do I need to put between the declaration of the method? And by the way, this is called signature of the method. This is the signature of the method. Okay.
Okay.
On
Okay.
this public static void remove items from stack, you're just basically saying, okay, I'm creating a method that takes no arguments and returns no values. That's the
Okay.
document. You just sign it saying every single time I'm calling this method, this is the way I'm going to do it. All right,
Okay.
this is a signature. This is a signature of your method again. So this is a signature saying, okay, the name of the method is this, and every single time I'm calling this method, I am obligated to pass this argument,
Okay.
and I can or cannot use this, but the method will always return this value. I'm not obligated to use that value, but just need to be to understand that that value will always be returned to me.
Okay.
Okay, so some guys, some lines of thought, read. They just go around. How many lines do I need to Uh, what is the max number of lines you can have inside of a method to keep it readable? Okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
something that it's used a lot into your coding. What is the name again? It would be something like a better way to represent your code, or framework. It's not actually a framework, but it's a way of making sure that everyone is using the same thing. Okay, let me show you something. It's called design patterns. Design patterns. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
patterns, methods, uh, like number of lines, because some people say that if you have like more than 50 lines inside of a method, probably
Wow.
probably your method is doing more than just one thing. For example,
Yeah.
on this method, read print age. For example, I could do something like this. I could do like int um, year of birth, or age, for example, equals to 2018 minus year. Can I do this? Of course I can, right? I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
two things inside of the method. I'm finding out the age, and then instead of calling this one, I just could go ahead and use the variable I created in here.
Okay. Now I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Where it says int age equals 2018 minus year,
Yep.
but the method is void.
But we are not returning anything. You see, we don't have any return in here. We are just printing information. Return, when your method has a type, you need to return. So if you see the
Okay.
return special word, okay,
Okay.
okay. So
Okay.
back to what I was talking. So if you have like
Sorry.
no, it's okay. It's great to have this kind of question. So back to so just back to the general idea. If you have more than actually, if you're reaching 50 lines of coding inside of a method, this basically tells us that your method is not just doing what his signature is saying he's doing. It's the same
That makes
case.
sense.
It's the same case in here. We are saying, okay, this method prints the age, but it's not just printing the age. It's finding out what is the age too.
Okay.
It's doing two things. But the thing is, Red, you need to be rational about this because
Hmm.
both methods are correct. Both things are correct. Okay? Both
Okay.
methods are correct. This method is correct. This method is correct. It doesn't. There's no difference between them. So if it is something that you are not going to use it anywhere outside of this method, maybe it's not a bad idea to have it inside of the method. For example, do you think is there any other place inside of your code that you might need to find the age based on the year the user is passing to you, other than print age, for example? If the
Probably
answer
not.
if the answer is not, then it totally makes sense to have the two things inside of the method, even though your answer is not correct, because down here, Red, we are doing the same thing based, as you can see.
Okay.
We
All
are
right.
doing on the same thing. We are taking the age in here.
Okay.
So yeah, we need something that tells us that converts year into age. This
Okay.
is just a poor example. Let me show you something. Maybe it's a bit too early for you. Can I open your browser?
One, one second.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll pull it over.
Okay.
Uh, Whoops. Okay. It's got a bunch of junk on there.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, what I want you to have is this thing in here. It's a bit too early for you to try to figure out what all this stuff do. It's a bit too early for
Okay.
that. But it's always a good idea to just take a look, uh, to just see and understand how the industry works with your coding and how you were supposed to do this and that. Okay.
Okay.
Let me show you a bad example of coding. Just give me a second. I'm trying to find. I know a place that gives us a lot of good examples of um, bad programming, even though those guys think they are the best ones in the world. Give me a second.
Okay.
Um, okay, this is a good example. There you go. Let me just paste in here. You probably don't know these guys, but I'm just gonna tell you right away they just suck balls. And okay, so let's take a look into this. Let's take a look into um, well, this is a good idea actually, because on this one, as you can see, they are getting rid of magic numbers and making it into something that people can understand. That's a good idea. Good practice. Okay, this method. Let's see. Get spec. Okay, all right. This method is supposed to return this spec the spec the user or the player or whatever has. Okay, so there's just one line that just that does specifically that. It just returns the spec. Oh, great. And let's see. Verify spell class. Okay, actually they did a good work in this because this used to be a mess actually. Methods doing a lot of different stuff inside of the same thing, and maybe this is one of the. All right, all right. Here's a good example. You see what's going on in here? How many lines I was telling you it's acceptable for a method?
50.
Okay.
Well,
50 being an
the max.
exaggeration, all right? So
Right.
as you can see right here, this has been commented out, but as you can see right here, we have way more than 50. And is this readable, Red?
No.
No. Okay. So maybe what can we do about this? Well,
Wow.
okay, maybe we could just use different methods saying, okay, if the class is shaman, okay, call the method that returns for that specific
Just
class. You don't need to redo the same thing in here, calling the same thing over and over and over again, and making mistakes and crashing other people's server by doing
wow.
stuff like this. You see what I'm talking about?
Wow. Okay, they commented that all out. So are they essentially getting rid of that
They change it.
and then fixing it?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
they changed it actually. They just right now they are just using the select spell cast, passing
Okay.
the spells method. You see? Just one line.
Okay.
Actually, there's just two lines in here. The first line, then they comment this whole thing out. There you go. Possible spells vector. There's just a declaration of possible spells vector. So possible spells vectors have no value right now, and nowhere to be seen has assigning value to that because the whole thing has been commented out, and
Wow.
they are returning spellcast passing a new value into that. So yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, you got the idea. So right now down here, for example, uh, simple charmed played AI. All right, this is the name of the method. Let's see what happens in here. It gets the charmer. Okay, all right. If there's a charmer, if there is not a charmer, then it just get out of this. All right, and if
Okay.
not, then it checks, is the charmer in evade mode? All right, or is the charmer in combat? If the charmer, for example, is in evade mode, then it's getting the aura effect and then doing a lot of blah 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 and blah blah blah. As you can see,
Okay.
maybe they could refactor this and make this um, more industry standard, for example, because it gets really confusing to read this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would guess so.
All right. Of course, of course, Red. This is just a choice you can make. There's no rights or wrongs, but it's really annoying to get into a method that it's called uh, simple charm player. It gets really annoyed when you go into that method, and as you can see, the method returns nothing. All right. So when
Okay.
you get inside that method, and that method is not just doing one thing, it's doing several other things, or fighting stuff out, or finding a lot of different things. Right here, it's okay. It's okay because they have is in evade mode. They are
Mm-hmm.
calling a different method that returns a Boolean value that checks if the charmer is in evade mode. It's okay. this one, because the worst case scenario could be they add another 100 lines in here that does ECNF8 mode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be the worst case scenario. So this is just one example, Red, of stuff you're going to see. Of course, this is way more complicated than the thing we did it right here. But if you start doing the things on the right way, it will get a lot easier for you in the future to arrange your code, or to just make sure that your programs can be understood by different
Okay.
programmers, and you're not just relying on stuff like this.
Okay.
Back then, Red, we used to add a comment in here saying this method is supposed to remove items from the stack. The item to be removed is going to be the last one. This is a good example of commenting in here, all right?
Okay.
But since your method is self-documented, it is already saying you're removing
It
an
tells you
item.
exactly what to
Yeah.
do.
The only problem in here, Red, it's not telling you which position it is removing. This is something we don't know, so we need to refactor that. And let's say remove last item from stack. That would be a lot better, right?
Yeah.
And let's call that method. So remove last item from stack. And you don't need to pass any parameters. I probably, oopsie.
Oops.
I probably wrote this wrongfully. There you go. It doesn't need any parameters or arguments. And let's say it prints, whoopsie. Let's say it's print the stack before I'm doing this, okay? And
Okay.
then we have a method that prints a separator, right? Print separator is the name of the method. So print separator, and then print separator after that, after removing.
Okay.
No, we don't print anything after removing, so that's it. That's good. Okay,
Okay.
let's see how it goes. There we go. Full stack. Then we remove the last item. We
Yep.
printed a separator, remove the last item, and did that. So as you can see right now, this one is self-documented. Okay, Red, what does this method do? It removes the last item from the stack. There you go.
Yep.
So this is basically useless, right?
Right.
And the problem is, Red, if you're just saying remove item from stack, it could be something like, okay, it's going to be the first element, maybe. Is it going to be the first element you're removing, or the last one, or one from the middle, or is one from the index I passed in here?
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
it doesn't tell you exactly what you're doing, but this
Right.
way it is. So every
Right.
single time you create a new method, I want you to make a good exercise on first things first, on making sure the method is doing just one thing for now. If it
Okay.
is not doing one thing, I want you to be really critic about it and think if you were going to need this to do, you need to do the same thing in any other spot on your program. If that's a function that you might need somewhere else. And if that's a function that you might need somewhere else, just keep track of it and make sure that you're not using more than 4 times. If you're using it more than 4 times, it is time for you to create
Make
a
a new.
method. Yeah, make a method, because this way you're making sure that you are not going to make a mistake. For example, in on a simple method like this one, there's no big mistakes you can make. But let's say that this is a method that calculates the area of a pyramid, for example. And you do something using pi, And at some method, or when you're rewriting the whole thing, you just change one of the elements at pi, and the whole thing goes down. So,
Yeah, that'd be a mess.
yeah, so that's why I'm telling you about this. Okay.
Okay, does it matter how long your method name, um, like this part is? How long this is?
Oh, just try to make it rational. Okay.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be the whole Bible in here. Okay. First Genesis, God creates the world, blah blah blah.
No.
One thing I would like to point it out, um, actually, is this. As you can see, we start with the lowercase,
Yeah,
and on every single new word,
the
you're
first
using.
letter is capital.
Okay, this is called camel case. All right. So when you see someone
Okay.
saying, "Okay, oh, I'm camel casing my methods," that great deal. Wow, you're amazing. I know some guys that could use your your powers.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
we just saw an example of it.
Yeah. so,
Sort of.
rules of thumb, Brad, no more than 50 lines. Yeah, 50 lines being ridiculous. Of course, there are
Yeah.
exceptions. Sometimes, Red, you need to create a huge SQL instruction. Sometimes you need to create
Oh.
a huge comment inside of a method. So on cases like that, we just used to rule out those kind of stuff like this. I rule out the ifs or the declarations, for example, on this one. I have a variable declared in here, okay? So
Mhm.
I don't count this as a line. This is something I do. So if I need to have like 50 different variables inside of a method to make it work, I'm not counting those as lines, for example, because the core of the method, the stuff that makes the method work, the logic of the method is not using 50 lines. I'm just preparing the ground to make the method. Okay?
Okay.
Makes sense?
That one was a little bit confusing.
Okay, for
If that
example,
doesn't count as a line,
this means it's not, it doesn't count as a line. It's just something that I need to have to make the method work. So there's no way I could get rid of those or that.
okay.
Okay, in this case, it's wrong because in this case, we are not using this. We are using find age, right?
Right.
Passing year as our argument. But let's say, for example, that you need something like int A, int B, int C, and whatever. Okay?
Okay.
And this is something you really need to do. This is something you really need to have into your code to make this method work.
Okay, so those three then wouldn't count as actual lines of the code.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
It's not something that your computer is going to do for you or your IDE. It's just something I used to do to just reassure to myself that I'm not strict about the 50 lines, because sometimes you need to add variables, you need to add comments, you need to add something preparing the ground to make this. But the core part of the method, the, the thing that makes the method works, it can't be longer than 50, because if it is longer than 50, there's a huge probability of you making stuff that is not supposed to be on the same method.
Okay. Question.
Yep.
Okay. This one, for example.
Okay.
Whoops. Okay. Is this line counted?
Yeah.
Because it's an if? Okay.
No, it is
And
counting because it's part of the core. It's part of the decision making of the method.
okay. All right. Just making sure.
Yeah, but Rad, don't be way to critic on yourself about this, okay? Because
Okay.
sometimes you are going to, as we used to say, you are going to reinvent the wheel. You are creating something that already exists. This is not
Yeah.
something we are going to evaluate in here. We are just evaluating stuff that you are creating because you didn't know it had before. But
Right.
there's no reason for you to repeat yourself inside of your code. So
Okay.
don't worry if the library already exists, if the method already exists, or if there's a different method that does exactly the same thing you're looking for. That's not the point.
Okay.
The point is Red uh, making this part of using this part of the code several times inside of her own code. If that's happening, that's bad.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
You said if something does something more than 4 times, make another method.
Yeah.
Would that second method be the same thing? The same as the first method then, if it does the same thing?
No, because oh, I got it. You mean like this run, right? Add items, and then you say one, two, three, 4 times in here. So if I'm using the fifth time,
Mm-hmm.
I would need to add create a method, right? No,
Right.
no, that's not the point because there's no logic in here. There's no coding in here. There's just calling the method. We are just calling
Okay.
something that will process that and give us that information. But
Okay.
this is a great example, Red, because our first version of this software was like this. Let me show you. This is the line, and our first version was this. Let's just add index in here. There you go. All right. Our first
Okay.
method, our first version of this was this, and we repeat it over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
Remember?
Right.
So it totally made sense for us it's the same thing, the exactly same thing, and it totally makes sense for us to create a method that does exactly this, so we can just call that method instead of risking, for example, that we could make a mistake in here,
Right.
and
Right.
instead of using index in here, we are using stack size
Yeah.
and whatever, because of course
Okay.
this is a really simple example, but if you're going as your software grows, things tends to be more complicated, and it's particularly complicated if you're trying to um, work on something that you wrote like ages ago. For example, Red, I have this software that I wrote back in 2007, and
Okay.
it is still running. It is still running, and now and then, actually, it's a pretty active software. So now and then, I get requests from the customer about enhancements on the software and stuff like that, and I have to open that, and of course, I need to dust out some spider webs from here and stuff from there, and I look at that code and I want to kill myself because I don't think like that anymore. There are new stuff that I could do in that software, but it's not a trivial software. Last time I
Right.
needed to refactor something for that customer, it was about 40,000 lines. 40,000. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not something like that you can just, okay, scratch this, let's rewrite the whole thing, because you have years and years and years of operation that is still running. So always think on your code like a train. You are never going to stop it right away. It it has inertia. It takes some time to stop. So when you're creating something or when you're writing software, always think ahead. Always try to at least try to think ahead. Doing as we are discussing creating methods if you're repeating yourself, making your method self-documented, and stuff like that will help you in the future. For example, in 5 years, you are going to look at this code and say, what was I thinking when I did that? And then you're going to read the name of your method or read the signature of your method and say, oh, that's what I was thinking. That's how I
Okay.
did it back then. Got it?
Okay. Yep.
All right.
Makes sense.
Okay, Red. I think that's a good spot for us to finish our class. And
Okay.
on the next class, we need to implement more things in here. Because, of course, we are doing the basic stuff. The basic stuff is have a stack, add items to the stack, remove items from the stack, and we have some control on if we reach the beginning of the stack and if we are over the maximum size of the step. So yeah, we are doing
Okay.
good with the stack thing, but we can implement a little bit more. We can create a little bit more and make your stack actually deviate from your stack and make something that will allow you, for example, to remove a specific item from the middle of your stack and move all the other items into the prior position. That's one example. That's maybe
Okay.
something we could do next class. It won't be stacks anymore. It won't be.
Okay.
It's going to be something we called linked chain. This is something we call linked chain. But
Okay.
it's something it's worth for you to learn and understand.
Okay.
Just another comment on about 2 classes ago, we did a method that was doing a sorting inside of your
Mm.
or your vector. Remember?
Right.
It was a bubble sort. Remember?
Right. Yep.
And then we enhanced that bubble sort using a breakpoint if there was uh, no more items that were needed to be sorted. Remember?
Right. Yep.
Okay, I want you to take a look at that code and make
Okay.
that bubble sort into a method and save it. And
Okay.
save it because that is a method that you are going to use in the future.
Hmm.
That is a
Okay.
method that will be useful. Okay, so
Mhm.
when you think about a programmer, think about a mechanic. A good mechanic will always have a good set of tools, right? It always
Right.
have a good set of tools that they are always at hand to help him solve problems. That's the one thing you need to have too. So that's your first tool, your bubble sort that you're going to make it into a method. And if you ever need to sort something, you already have a method that does exactly that. It's
Cool. Okay.
it's not the fastest one in the earth, but it's
Right.
yours. It's something you did. It's something you understand.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, Red. So let's wrap it up. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.